Hello everyone, welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV. All the very best to all Newcastle supporters for 2021 from everybody here at Newcastle Fans TV. But the football doesn't stop. This is just the hectic season, of course. And in just a couple of days' time, we have got Leicester City at St James's Park. I've got Brad from Leicester Till I Die. Brad, welcome to Newcastle Fans TV.
Cheers for having me on. It's good to be on here. It's going to be an interesting one to talk to you guys about. Like you said, it's a busy time of year for everybody when it regards to football. So the games do come thick and fast. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is going to be a game which will, it's a middle game on Sunday, isn't it? Super Sunday. So hopefully it's the most exciting game, and hopefully Newcastle can come out with a win. But I'm sure you'll want something else. But we'll talk about it as the matches come. But we'll start with Leicester, Brad. Brendan Rodgers, he's done an exceptional job at Leicester since taking over from Claude Puel a couple of years ago now. What have you made of his transformation? Because he's really taken Leicester to the next step.
I think he's just the right sort of calibre of manager with his experience, as you know, with Liverpool and Swansea beforehand. And I know jokes get said about it, but what he achieved at Celtic is still something that he'll be impressive on his CV. And I think when you're a club like that, I refer to Leicester as being the sort of team that remind me of Tottenham, like about 10 years ago when they were on the rise and they were the talk of the town of, can they break the top six? Can they break that mould? And, you know, the question was they needed to bring in a manager that had that experience behind him. And they kind of had a few classy names that had done well in other leagues, but not too much in the Premiership. And we finally got one now that has that experience and has that knowledge. And he's brought, you know, even he's admitted himself, he's still learning as a coach and still improving. You know, he's taken another tactical approach that he hadn't done before, which is the passing style of game. He normally is with Celtic. He was very gun ho. And it's just rolled into one, and it's just fell nicely for us as a club and him as a manager. And I just think it's a great appointment, and it's proved and paid off dividends, not just from last year's result, but the way we've started this season and where we are in the league and what's going on. It's been a brilliant appointment. It's a bit of a masterstroke, I think, in a way. We'll be looking at it in years to come, that one of our best managers was Brendan Rodgers.
Hopefully, from a Leicester point of view, that is the case, that Brendan Rodgers is one of Leicester's best ever managers. If he can get a couple of trophies in his tenure, I think that'll go down exceptionally well. If you look at the last six for Leicester in the Premier League, Brad, 3 wins, 2 draws, and that defeat against Everton at the King Power, Leicester have been very, very consistent. They sit third in the table, and you can see in the last few games, when you look, in particular Christmas period, Spurs away, what a result that was. I don't think many people expected you to beat Spurs away, considering the form they've been in. And then a good point against Manchester United. And Palace away, that's not a bad point either. When you look at the last 3 games in particular, Brad, you're certainly knocking on the door to being in the title race. Or do you consider yourselves not in the title race this year and just trying to cement yourself in the top 4?
I think from maybe a club's perspective and the way that they're managing themselves, and they've always managed themselves in a good sense, that they're probably just aiming to get that top 4, that European success. You know, there's always that big question. And obviously, I know in the past that Burnley and Leicester beforehand, when we were in the Champions League, couldn't handle both competitions well. I mean, last year, Wolves handled them pretty well when they were doing the league and you know, we've got out the group, we topped it, we're in the top 4. I think you can be title contenders. Whether we are going to end up challenging for a title is a different story, but I don't see there's no reason why we can't cement a solid performance throughout the season and continue it and get top 4. I think that's the goal. I think the goal was to take last season one step further, you know, after falling behind and ending up finishing 5th when we were in 4th, well, in the top 4 for so long. You know, it would be nice to kind of get that top 4 and build on last season. So I'd be happy with top 4. I think Liverpool, even though they've slipped a lot more than last season, but last year they were a different animal. Let's be honest, they were. You know, for the last 2 or 3 seasons, Liverpool or Man City have been a different breed of football team. I still think they've got enough to probably take the title this year. Maybe Manchester United, it might be a season behind the making for them. If we do it, we do it. Fantastic. I'm going to do cartwheels in the streets, but I'd be happy with top 4. I'd be happy with top 4 and going far in Europe, to be honest with you. Maybe a trophy as well. An FA Cup's due. We've not won one of them yet. So
not too much then. Not too much. Just top 4 finish, a title race, maybe the Europa League and an FA Cup.
yeah, just maybe the quadruple, whatever. You know, I'm not picky, mate.
Definitely. Well, you look at the table right now, you can see in front of you, Brad, third in the table at the minute. No one's really running away with it. And I was just saying to my brother off there, he's a big Liverpool fan. And when we took a point off them, I said that's a missed opportunity, because for them, they had West Brom, then us. We did exceptionally well to get a point the other day. It just seems like if a Leicester can say win 7 or 8 games on the bounce, which you've done before when you won the league a few years ago, if you can keep on winning, get those 1-0 wins or keep getting the points on the board, who knows anybody's title? You could say there's an argument for maybe 8 or 9 teams, if they can get on a really good run, they could run away with it.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, this year's also in the midst of everything that's gone on in the world, it's actually kind of nice and refreshing. And I made the statement back when we actually won the league that maybe we'd open the door for the teams like Everton, Southampton, and I know you guys haven't had the best of terms, and obviously we all know what happened with Ashley. But I put your name in the mix as well earlier on, saying that teams like Newcastle, who used to be up there in the 90s when you had fantastic sides, and I was quite envious of your sides back then when I was growing up, to be honest with you. But, that them teams kind of looked at us when we won the league, went, well, if they can do it, why can't we? And, I've heard people saying this is kind of the season, like you said, when no one wants to seem to grab it by the scruff of the neck. Why can't Leicester do it again? Or why can't Spurs take this opportunity and finally win a title? Why can't an Everton get in Champions League? Southampton, Villa, they're still up there. I mean, we forget that Villa have 2 games in hand. Granted, I believe one's against Man City, but we spanked them. They've been beat before. You never know. This season's great to see. It's great to see such an open season, like no one's grabbing it by the scruff of the neck. No one's 10, 12, 15 points clear, very close. And like you said, you got a fantastic point against Liverpool. I was dead impressed. And I think it kind of gave your manager a bit of breathing space, because he's taken a lot of slack recently. And I understand why with the style of football that he brings. But I think he brought himself a bit more time with that performance and result, because it was one of them where last year you'd have put a quid on Liverpool to win and you'd have got £1 and 1 pence back. But now getting a point off them was probably some decent money, the way your form was going into it. So yeah, you're right. It's good to see them teams up there, and it's great to be a part of it. It's always great when you're in the mix and you're getting mentioned with it. It's almost met with envious eyes if you're not. But yeah, it's great to see. And who knows? It'd be great to see them sort of teams finish in that top 6 to 8 come the end of the season.
100%. Let's talk about your squad in particular, Brad, at Leicester. 4-2-3-1 seems to be the formation that Brendan Rodgers likes to go with. Obviously, Kasper Schmeichel, we all know he's a fantastic goalkeeper. We don't really have to talk about him too much, but the defence is quite interesting. The partnership with Fofana and Everton. I know Fofana's, I think, is he doubtful? Is he out of the game against Newcastle? You've got obviously Justin and Castagna, who have been revelations this year at fullback, and you still haven't had Ricardo Pereira back, who had an exceptional season last season as well. There's just so much depth and quality in that Leicester side and that starting 11. Ndidi, Tielemans, who I think is very underrated, in my personal opinion. You've got Maddison and Barnes, and then you've arguably got one of the best strikers in the league in Jamie Vardy. If there is a weak link, is where Newcastle could potentially exploit from a Leicester point of view, who is that person that Newcastle could exploit?
Your ex-player, if he plays, Perez.
What have you made of him?
First of all, I want to get it out there. I know Perez hasn't played where he particularly likes to play. When Newcastle fans told us the day we got him, he blows hot and cold. And I knew that from watching his performances. I feel like I'm probably more harsh on Perez than anybody. Maybe it was the expectations. I believe it was Rodgers' first signing he made when he brought him in. It was pretty instantaneous that he brought Perez in with him. And I probably think the weight of expectation for him, that at least when he blew hot, he'd be very hot, and it just hasn't clicked with him. And I know he's out wide, and I know that's not where he's preferred, but he must have known that before he joined us, and he's just not really, for me, he's not really delivered at a level of expectations that I'd like to see progressing. It's all good being fancy and stepping overs, but the guy spends more time than Jack Grealish on the floor at times, which annoys the hell out of me. I don't like seeing it from anybody. And I know Maddison's another one, but I'd say if we've got a weakened area, I think by the amount of players we have and have tried in that area, I think our right side of the attack is where you could probably get downers and probably isolate Justin or Albrighton if he comes in. Because if we don't play Albrighton, Cengiz Under's been struck with niggles and injuries and hasn't really settled into the Premier League. Gray is the forgotten man that obviously wants out by club, as it's very well stated by player and manager. So we don't really have anyone there. And like you said, Ricardo's not fit. So it's not like, I mean, he used to, when we had the injuries, used to shove up to right wing and play there ahead of him. So maybe that's an area you can try and maybe isolate Justin or Castagne. I mean, it's kind of like what people say about Vardy. It's easy saying it, but it's hard to do. But that's probably our weakest point on the pitch, because we still haven't found a Mahrez replacement. That's where we're going to get the comparisons to, and that's unfortunate to whoever takes that position. But that's probably our weakest point going there, because I think everywhere else we're pretty sound.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just going to say, it's interesting to talk about Perez, because I remember being absolutely gutted when we sold him. Well, not sold him, you activated a release clause of £30 million. And
was it a release clause? I actually know that.
Yeah, it was a release clause of £30 million in his contract. And we were thinking, well, obviously the player can still say no, even if it's been activated. I said, no, I'm happy to stay where I am. But I think Newcastle fans at the time were, I'm not too sure about this, because we had just lost Rondon, we'd lost Perez. And I think there's still an element of Newcastle fans that would have Perez back on loan in this January window, and myself included, because like you said, Brad, when he's hot, he is hot. Do you think that there's any chance that Brendan Rodgers would play Perez in a number 10 position, say in the Maddison position, or is Maddison just too good and you can't do that?
Again, Maddison is probably more hot than cold, but he's susceptible to being on his day. He's one of the best out there. And like I said, it's definitely more a case of when he's on form, and he's more on form than not. I just don't see him getting too many opportunities, but we have seen in the European games and in the last couple of weeks, with Maddison being out or being rested because of the quickness of fixtures, he's had the opportunities and he has done well. So I don't know, maybe Brendan's found a way to keep him on board and keep him here and use him and get the best out of him in sort of small doses. Maybe his actions on the training ground and his attitudes change, so he knows that when he comes on, he's got a limited time to make an impression, and he's got to keep doing it. And I don't know, maybe we'll see more of him play on that position. I thought about 7 or 8 games into the season that he was done as a Leicester player, and in the last couple of weeks, he's been brought back into the moulds. Time will tell. I still don't think he'll be here in a year's time or something. I think if Newcastle came back in for him in the summer, we'd listen to the offer. I think he'd probably get fleeced a little bit. We're kind of like robbers when it comes to transfer fees with our history.
What would you take for him? What would you take for Perez right now? Say now or the end of the season. If someone put an offer on the table, what would be the minimum you'd want for Perez?
See, January, I don't really like the January transfer window, because, as you know, prices are inflated, because you're not going to want to sell someone that if you're buying someone in January, it's either a quick fix, like, no disrespect, because I think he's a great player and a great player, but Andy Carroll. If we was to go and get a target man and we said to you, give us 20 million and Andy Carroll or 10 million and Andy Carroll and you can have Perez, I think that's the only way we'd do any deal, because we get a bit of our cash back, Perez, you get a player that you like back, and we get a target man for a second option, because obviously Slimani is not going to be a Leicester player. That's another one. And I never really rated him, to be honest with you, since he arrived at the club. That's what it is. But if we wanted a plan B option for a short-term fix, I think that's the only way we'd do a deal with getting rid of Perez, because, like I say, even though he's not the best on that side, he is classed as one of the players that we put on the right wing. And right now, until we see more of Under, we still haven't got a solid player that we can put out on that ride. I can't say my words today. Wide right and do a job for us. Whereas he's, like I said, when he's hot and on form, he can actually do that job to a decent standard. So unless it's a swap deal with a bit of cash for a striker like Andy Carroll or something like that, you can keep Joel Linton. Don't worry about that. We're not going to have to. But yeah, I can't see him coming. But in the summer, 10 million, 15 million. I think if it was for nostalgia and you don't want to step in a player returning to prove a point, because I know he has that celebration, doesn't he, where he puts his fingers in his ear. And I think that was not something to do with the stick he was getting off that section?
Yeah, he got a lot. The thing is, he had good and bad games in the Championship for Newcastle, and I said in a better team, you'll have good and bad games for a top 4 team. And Leicester, you've got to look at just off the top 4. If you look from last season, he'll have good and bad games. He is that sort of player. He is a very hot and cold player. But if you're saying 10 million, I'd have him back for 10 million. But it'd be interesting to see what he's getting in the comments if you think that's a good price for Perez in the summer. But let's talk a little bit about Newcastle before we touch a little bit about predictions and everything else. Obviously, Steve Bruce was under a lot of pressure in Newcastle's Christmas fixtures with Manchester City, Liverpool, and Leicester. That defeated the Etihad after 24% possession. Wasn't really something that we were looking forward to when we were taking on Liverpool, but he got a reaction. Yeah. He got a big reaction, Brad, against Liverpool, 0-0. Had a couple of chances. Yes, Liverpool had about good 4 or 5 chances, but Newcastle, I think, thoroughly deserved their point. They defended well. Is that a potential frustration for Leicester City, Brad? Because I think Newcastle will give Leicester that respect. I think Steve Bruce will give that Leicester team respect and go 5 at the back, just so it stops Jamie Vardy, for example, doing what he does best and running in behind.
Yeah, and I think you can look at our performances where we've dropped points this season, or maybe we've snuck it. Snuck the 3 points. Most notably was the Sheffield United game, but teams that have come and got points off us or beat us this season have pretty much done the same. They've kind of gone, well, we'll counter-attack you because we know we can't match you like for like. And that's not a disrespect to Fulham. That's not a disrespect to Villa or yourselves. But I think sometimes it's all about how you set up. I mean, if you'd have gone to Liverpool and tried to go all guns blazing, you'd have got hammered. So you play what's in front of you, and you have to respect it. And like you said, you come in to respect a team that can go at teams and rip the defense apart with a single pass. And the next thing you've gone from 20 minutes it's 0-0 to half an hour and it's 3-0 and the game's out of sight, which has been the case the last couple of times we've obviously met when we've played you. That you win the game for a bit and then you've pushed too far, and that's when we picked you off. I think you've got a better chance of getting something from us if you play like you did against Liverpool, and like you said, try and do what everybody tries to do and doesn't always do a great success, and that's stop Jamie Vardy from wriggling free of your defence and getting through, because that is literally how you're going to stop us from scoring, is to cut off the supply. So I can see it being a very frustrating but entertaining battle between us on Sunday. I think it'll be a good game.
100%. If you look at Newcastle's last 6 in the Premier League, 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats. And then you've got the Brentford game in the middle, which is a massive disappointment for Newcastle. Quarter-final of the League Cup against a Championship side that made big changes. And Newcastle, unfortunately, bottled it. And that's why Steve Bruce is getting a lot of criticism at the minute. But I think Callum Wilson has been a revelation at Newcastle. And I think he can do damage to your defence. From what you've seen of as you can see on your screen, the former Bournemouth man, Brad, what do you think of Callum Wilson? Is he a player that you would have liked at Leicester? Maybe is that second choice back in the summer? Do you think Newcastle have got a very good player on their hands here?
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, he reminds me of the strikers you had. Like I said, I mean, I'm only classed as a child in the footballing world at age 30 here, but the strikers I remember seeing in that era, he kind of reminds me of like a bustly forward. He's got pace behind him as well, which is a bit unusual for his size because he's quite powerful. From what I've seen of him, he's not afraid to get his shoulders in between defenders and do the card graph. And we was linked with him. It wasn't much of a link. There was only a few whispers that we were going in for him, and I would have welcomed him at Leicester. I think someone of his caliber and what he can do kind of reminds me of Jermaine Defoe, but he's got a bit more about him, a bit more meat on the bones to be probably more precise. I'd have taken him at Leicester. I think he's a good striker, and I think I don't know how old he is now, but I'd say if he's got a few more years in him, Newcastle will do well to keep hold of him before someone maybe like an Arsenal, who are down there in that relegation scrap, winning 6-pointers at the moment. But he could end up going there and solving their problems up front they've got. And you wouldn't blame him if he took that opportunity, no matter where they are in the league. He's a very good striker. I think you got 20 million. He cost you.
Yeah, 20 million.
Absolute bargain.
Yeah.
I'm selling Perez here on a January sale on a Black Friday sort of price, and you pay 20 million for Callum Wilson was an absolute steal. Yeah. I think he's brilliant, and I think he's the reason that you are where you are in the league. And I know 100%. That might not sound like much of a compliment, but you're probably a lot better off than where you would be without him.
Exactly. Look at 8 goals and 13 appearances. He was born in 92, so well 28, 29. It's
Yeah,
it's a good age for a striker.
Yeah, if he can do a Vardy, he's still got 5 years in him easy. So
Good.
if you get his, if you can get a use out of him, and he keeps up that level and intensity, you'll eventually get there. I think he's probably one of them players. You say you have one in every squad. You go, you've got to build your squad around him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know we've got a few names like you point out, Maddison, Tillemans, Casper. But you like you say, the main way we get our results and our goals is by building a strategy or a tactic around Jamie Vardy. And then obviously I know in a year or two time, that time's going to come where the torch is going to get passed and we have to build it around another front man. But I think Steve Bruce or whoever's in charge, whilst he's at your club, build a squad around him, give him a reason to stay for the next 3-4 years and end his career at Newcastle possibly if you do that.
Yeah. Is there anybody else? Yeah, I was just going to say, is there anybody else in Newcastle's squad that you can see the squad on your screen as well? Is there anybody that worries you apart from say Callum Wilson, for example? Because when we don't have a lot of possession, I think the most possession we've had in the last few games is about 30-35% max. We need to do more with our possession of the football. Now, if Joe Linton's on one side and Jacob Murphy's on the other, I don't think you're going, I'm terrified of them. Is there anybody in Newcastle's squad apart from Callum Wilson you go, I don't really want him playing?
Either of your goalkeepers, to be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I think Newcastle have the best first and second choice goalkeepers in the Premiership by a country mile. Because you might say there's better keepers out there, like maybe not so much the last couple of seasons, but De Gea, you've got Edison at Man City. But if you compare them to who their backups are, they're miles apart. I mean, Man City's second choice goalkeeper, is it still Rob Green? Is it bloody Ben Foster? I don't know. Is it still Caballero? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when Newcastle have 2 number ones fighting it out, 2 great keepers at a respectable level, if Darlow or Dubravka's in goal, you're thinking, this kid can save it. This goalkeeper's got something about him. And to have a number 1 and a number 2, if Vardy gets shut out, it's going to take a barn screamer to beat him, I reckon, whoever you put in goal. Midfield, I don't particularly like the way he handled things with Bournemouth, but Matt Ritchie, he's a bit of a thorn. He's one of them players that kind of can do a job like Ndidi. He can turn out of a tight space and he can make that pass and all of a sudden put you on the front foot. I think he's one we've got to look out for. But no, I agree with you. Unfortunately, I think you've got too much of an unbalanced side where there's not too many players that you kind of look at and go, oh, yeah, if he gets going, we could be in trouble. Yeah, I think you've got like Callum, you've got Wilson, you've got a midfielder in Ritchie, and you've got your goalkeeper that are going to be the hardest things to deal with. So, yeah, there's some of them names that I just think that's the reason why Bruce has come out and said, look, in a nutshell, Bruce has come out and said, you're moaning at me for being 13th with you, but with the squad of players I've got and the way they balance out of ability, we're where we can be. And I know
do you think he's doing a good job, Rod? Do you think Steve Bruce is doing a good job for Newcastle?
I do and I don't. I know he was the first manager, and I know everybody was furious that he was given the green light to spend like a shopaholic. And Rafa, who is a Newcastle's adopted father with the fans, they love him, and I can't fault you. He was a brilliant manager, but he wasn't backed for whatever reason by he who must not be named. It's like saying his name apparently to Newcastle fans is like Voldemort in Harry Potter. So, and he didn't bring in the right players. He spent and wasted a lot of money, which I can understand why Newcastle fans would be frustrated with that. So he's kind of built his own downfall. But at the same time, with the quality of players you've got, or lack of quality with some of them, a certain Joe Linton, I know Newcastle fans probably join in the jokes now as well as everybody else, but you've got a squad that's probably mid-table ready, and maybe the football's not pretty, and he's not the prettiest manager to watch or look at, to be fair, and I'm sure he'll admit that. But I have this argument a lot with fans where they say, oh, the football's boring. And I turn around to them and say, well, would you rather watch a nitty-gritty performance where you dig in deep and you get a result like you did against Liverpool that kind of makes you go, you know what, because I bet you then, if you'd have played like you did against Man City, you got beat, it's easy to moan at football was boring, and that's why. But when you see a determined performance turn into a positive result, like you got against Liverpool, it gets you there, doesn't it? You go, yeah, that's my boys, sticking the neck on the line, trying anything and everything to get a result from this game. He's got to do what he's got. And unfortunately, like I said, I've probably been kinder to Matt Ritchie than anything because I wanted to name an extra player on your list that I see as a threat. But my point is, he's got to work with what he's got. Now, you just say, oh, you got yourself in this mess, you got to get yourself out. Well, he brought these players. He's got to do what's best with them. So that's kind of what he's like, you brought the tools, mate. Make yourself. And unfortunately, the tools he's brought, I'd probably say at the moment, probably just have you bordering on where you are in the league. I'd say maybe 11th would be a good season for you. If you could get top half, I think you've had a successful season. And then he who must not be named needs to tell Bruce to do his job properly in the transfer window and build on that. Because that's where you are at the moment. Yeah. I think you need to start really building and just shop around in your local stores, as they say. Because sometimes
don't say that, Brad. Don't say that. Come on.
Oh no, I've cursed it now. End the show. Put me off. It was awful, Brad. Was it?
Yeah, I think the issue is you talk about style of performances, and it's always the argument what comes first: the performances or the results. It's a results business at the end of the day. It's results more than anything. I think the problem is we played against Man City the same way to an extent we played against Fulham, against West Brom, against Leeds United.
Yeah,
and that's where it's been disappointing at times for Newcastle. But it's an interesting debate. I would say that there were more fans Bruce out than anything than Bruce in, but if he can get another positive result against Leicester, then who knows? Because it'll be fascinating to say the least what can happen, and especially the January transfer windows. Obviously on the horizon, it'd be interesting to see if Newcastle can do a bit of business. Dan T says we don't see enough of the determined performances, though. That's the issue. Fulham, Brentford, Leeds were shocking performances. Pretty much what I've just said there, which is the Brentford game. I still can't get on my head. But we'll finish it with predictions. Brad, how are you all not going to get on at St. James on Sunday?
Well, I believe we're yet to lose. We've lost once away this season. Obviously, we know that was to Liverpool. And to quote your manager, it could be an easy win for us. It could be 3-0, and it could easily be 0-0. But I'm going to put my neck on the line and say, if we've got top four ambitions, we've got to put teams like you to bed. There's no disrespect to you, but any team that's challenging for Champions League, Europa League, nothing's guaranteed in this world or in football, for a matter of fact. We've got to get a win against you. I don't care if Wes Morgan comes on in the 96th minute and he comes off his left butt cheek and we beat you 1-0. But I'd say we could beat you. I think if we score, like it was against Crystal Palace, I think when we scored, the floodgates could have opened against Palace, even though we scored late on. And I think if we score and we break you down, the floodgates will open. And I think then what Newcastle fans might have to do, if that does happen, is kind of look at the game before the goal, if that makes sense. If it ends up being a 3 or a 4-0, but it took us 60 minutes to score, I think it'll be one of them where Newcastle fans will probably jump at the result more than the performance up until that point, because that's something I think you guys have been more consistent about, is when you go behind, you tend to kind of the heads go a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say 3-0 Leicester.
3-0 Leicester. A big win, and an emphatic win for the Foxes at St. James Park. I'm going to go 1-1. I think Newcastle can get something from this game. I think if we can frustrate you, like Crystal Palace did to an extent as well, then I think Newcastle potentially could get something. But if Callum Wilson's on form, who knows? I think he is that much of a difference for Newcastle. Brad, where can people find you if they want to get the best Leicester content? I can obviously see on the screen Leicester Till I Die TV. Where can people find you?
So you check us out on Facebook. As you see, you've got it up there. We've got the website. We're on Facebook. We're on Spotify. It's Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube. So if you want to check us out, we do the same as you. We'll have opposition views. We'll have a preview show for this game as well. So if you guys want to check us out when Chris does it for us, we're on YouTube, like I said, Leicester Till I Die TV. You can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, iTunes, and you can pretty much find us anywhere. We're like a rash, we're all over the place. Anything you can think of, you search us, you'll find us, no doubt.
Brilliant. Well, Adam's going to be on later on this evening to do a preview for on your channel as well. So we're looking forward to
Look
that
forward
as
to that.
well. But yeah, that has been the preview for Newcastle versus Leicester City. Brad says 3-0. I'm going 1-1. There's been a few comments saying that Newcastle might be able to get Nick a win. That would be fantastic. But Brad, thank you very much for coming along this afternoon. It's been a great chatting all things Newcastle, Leicester, and all the very best of luck from now to the end of the season after the game on Sunday.
Yeah, same goes for you, and of course for the same reasons. After we beat you after the game on Sunday, I'll jinx it now. You're probably going to beat us 3-0 now. I've said that. I hate making predictions, but yeah, all the best of your season. It's been great coming on the show, and it's been a pleasure to come on. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've got all the reaction for the game for Newcastle versus Leicester on Sunday. We've got the quick thoughts with Sam, the score in the players, and the last word with Lay on Sunday evening for Newcastle versus Leicester rather. And from then, we'll see you all very, very soon.